Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm back with another Play and Explain. This time we're going to do 500 NL zone on Bovada. On table 1, I open raised from the small blind with ace-4 suited, big blind 3-bet, and you can either 4-bet or call this hand. Flop is just an easy fold. Table 2 is also small blind versus big blind, and it's a single raise pot. I check the flop. I'll either check or bet this hand on the flop. And definitely going to call turn. And on the river, this is not like a slam dunk bluff catcher. You do need to call a lot of your ace-x depending on the size. But I think a lot of people will confuse in that spot. Let me rewind it here. They will see that they have a 6 and that they're blocking the straight, right? They're blocking 6-8 and 6-3, but they don't remember that their opponent's range, since he called my preflop open, he doesn't have any offsuit straights in his range. He has 6-8 suited and he's got 6-3 suited, but he doesn't have those offsuit combos. So while the 6 is certainly good to bluff catch with, it's not like as good as I think people will consider it to be. And that's just kind of an overall lesson that I think is really important. Just because you're blocking a straight doesn't necessarily mean you have a good bluff catcher. It depends on how many straights your opponent has in his range. So this video is gonna be like the first one that I did, where I recorded this last night and now I'm gonna narrate over it the next day. I like to do both. I like to show you kind of narrating in the moment, although it's way harder for me because just, talking and playing poker is totally different parts of my brain. But I do feel like it gives you a more honest look at what my thought process is. Whereas, if I'm doing this, I can sort of retroactively make up reasons for why I did the things that I did and kind of make myself look better than I actually am. But when I'm narrating after the fact, I think it does give me more time to offer more insight and just like more concise thoughts. So I think probably this is going to be mostly how I do it, but I did want to do some real-time play and explain as well. On table 2, big blind versus small blind, single raise pot, I stabbed the flop and then I got check raised and I called. And gonna just be stabbing the turn a lot. And this session, it's gonna be about 40 minutes, and I got kind of beat up this session. Not too bad. I think I lost just a little over a buy-in total. But this session, I think sort of the theme is just going to be a session where I couldn't really get much going. I couldn't get a lot of cards, and when I did get good cards, people just kind of folded to me. So this is going to be kind of more about just staying afloat, surviving when you're card dead, not forcing things too much. On table 1, this is sort of a dicey board to see bet range on because it's kind of in the middle between a connected and a disconnected board. So you might not want to see bet your whole range here. But if you are, it's probably fine as well. I check back the turn, mostly going to be checking back turn with this hand. And then on the river, this is actually a really good hand to bluff with, blocking a lot of straights. It's actually a mandatory bluff. If you give up here, which you might do pretty often because you have ace high and it's a bet check bet line. Usually ace high is not a bluff, but in this case, it's actually a mandatory bluff. And you can go really big there on the river because I have all of the ace king in my range. He has none of the ace king. So I've got a huge nut advantage. And so you can kind of bet as big as you want in that case. I just used 150 because I typically don't use much larger sizes than that. But I think you could definitely go 3x as well, or if you want to play really crazy, just rip it in. It's one thing that I want to study is kind of how much EV do you gain by actually incorporating sizes like 3x or even 5 or 10x pot, because this is what the solver will do in these spots is it'll bet like 10x pot. I want to study, if possible, how much EV is gained relative to just a normal overbet size like 1.5x or 2x if you were to just cap yourself at that. But I'm not sure yet. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's not super important. As long as you're overbetting, that's probably going to get you the majority of the results that you need, but still definitely interesting to look into. On table 1, there's this player who's opening 5x from the small blind, and I'm not really sure what to make of it. It might be, I think it's probably a recreational who's just mashing the 5x button, because there is one of those on Bovada. I believe, yeah, there's a 3x and a 5x preflop. It gives you that option for sizes. And so regulars like never use that. On table 2, I just got forced off my hand. Not much I can do there. So yeah, when I see that 5x open, I'm thinking it's probably a recreational, but it could be a regular who's just doing something really unorthodox. It is kind of annoying to play against because I never study that. Here, I think at this rake structure, 3/8 suited, you should probably fold pre, but given that I have a short stacker, I think I definitely want to call, expand my range a little bit, because this guy could be a recreational. And then on the turn, I think my hand is just too weak to continue. Ace king offsuit, you can either flat or 4-bet. I decided to flat here. Gonna call. And then I face this turn bet, and you're not really supposed to fold ace king here. I think it's going to be a call, but pretty close to indifferent. But I think that people don't really, I'll rewind it again, but people don't find enough bluffs in these spots in general. I think on the 7-7-5 jack, well, let me just put the question to you. Are you pure betting ace king here in the buttons shoes? Because that's what you're supposed to do in theory. I think a lot of people don't realize that. It's very hard to find enough bluffs in that spot, and so I think making an exploitative fold is good there. The pool seems to be kind of popping off. I started recording this around midnight last night, and I'd started playing around 11 or 11:30, and the pool was dead. But then all of a sudden, like right around midnight, it seemed like a bunch of recreationals joined the pool. And I think I didn't really watch what happened on table 2, but I think that was just a c-bet and give up. So I think there's about 20-ish players in the pool right now, maybe a little bit more. So the tables are not really full. And here comes the 5x raise again. I'm going to raise it up with 10s. And yeah, I don't know. It seems like the player is rebuying. It's kind of strange. Eights, I'm going to 3-bet. I'm playing 3-bet or fold from the small blind. By the way, if you haven't watched any of my Plain Explains before, that's my random number generator, my RNG on the top left. And so I'm using that to mix my decisions, to randomize my decisions. If you want to download that, there's a link in the description. The reason I'm randomizing, even though it's anonymous, is because I want people to be able to apply these videos to known pools as well. So in an anonymous game, it doesn't really matter if you're balanced, but that's not the point. The point of this video is not to show you how to just play in anonymous games. Small blind versus big blind. I'm going to c-bet small sometimes, check sometimes, and just give up when stabbed too. This will be a call in theory, but you could 3-bet it versus the short stacker. I kind of like that as well. I'm going to be mostly stabbing the flop here. And then turn, I actually want to be betting quite a bit, even though it's a bit scary. So yeah, I can't get too much going so far, just kind of a lot of small pots with... I feel like there's a lot of just weird small spots in this session, but that's good because that's really... You're playing real poker when those spots come up a lot. Poker's not about just what you do with the nuts. On the turn, I could donk here, I guess, but I'm not going to. I faced a weird kind of a overbet c-bet, and I don't really know what to do here on the river. In theory, to be honest with you, I just decided to block bet. It seemed fine in practice. I actually looked up the sim, and I think that my combo mostly checks the river. Then I faced this raise, which is probably under bluffed if I really think about it. Probably super under bluffed, but I do have a very good bluff catcher there. I just decided to call. in retrospect, I probably could have gotten away from that one, but kind of a sick fold. Just seems really unlikely that that player would be finding enough bluffs. And another pot size bet. So, and it looks like the tables are filling up now, so you can see. Maybe this is the right time of night to play. I don't know. Was I don't know, 12:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Don't usually play Tuesdays. Well, historically, like when I played full time, I would take Sundays and Tuesdays off almost every week. But I don't actually know. Like Tuesdays could be good on Bovada. I didn't do a really extensive study on it. I felt like Mondays were good, and I didn't want to skip Mondays. Sundays seemed like pretty trash for cash games because I think people play a lot of tournaments on Sundays. So yeah, taking Sunday and Monday off together would have been nice, but I always felt like Monday was just a really good night for poker, on Bovada at least. I decided to fold the gutter there to the large donk bet especially with the player behind me, and I'm not drawing to the nuts. I'm probably going to get blasted off my hand a lot in the turn. Just seemed like not the best spot. And I'm not sure about this rake structure, but you need to be careful when people min open from early position like this that you don't overfold your offsuit ace-x or your offsuit connected hands. That's typically where people mess up the defense in this spot pre-flop. And I river an ace, and I'm just going to check it this time. Hopefully the in-position player stabs at it, but he doesn't. We're at 1,000 subs on the channel. That happened yesterday. That was really, that was awesome. So thank you guys, everyone who's subscribed so far. I really appreciate it. My first goal for the channel was to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we did that in less than 2 weeks. So it's going great. I'm having a lot of fun with these videos. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to consistently post bi-weekly, but we'll see. So on the turn here, the jack is really good for me on table 2. This is a 3-bet pot. I called the c-bet on the flop and was jack 2 on the turn. So I should be betting this hand a lot. And I think in game I was thinking I'll mostly check this, and I think that's bad. I'm betting like pretty much every hand in my range quite a bit there for a small size. So that was sort of a misplay by me, even though checking in theory is perfectly fine. It's supposed to be a lower frequency check than what I was expecting. And I'm not sure about this combo, defending it, but it is suited and connected, and it was a small open, so I just mainly don't want to overfold versus those little min opens. Table 1, I'm just going to check it down. Oh, this was an annoying hand. So we've got the 5x guy again. I'm going to 3-bet. I'm pretty sure it's a recreational at this point. And then he just donks into me for this huge size. And it's sort of like the 10-9 suited hand from before. I just feel like I could float this, but I think he's going to be over bluffing and just betting turn too much, and I'm going to get blasted off of my hand a lot. And so I just decided to ditch it. Table 2, we just called a small c-bet on the flop. I'm going to check. And then obviously I'm blocking a lot of stuff, blocking the royal flush. So I can check raise bluff here. I decided not to this time. And it's another spot where you can just go as big as you want because I do have a lot of nut flushes in my range. So you could even just rip it in there if you wanted to. Which I'm kind of wishing I would have done that because it would have been fun to watch. Here, King Jack suited. Again, they're not too well studied on this rake structure, but typically these suited King X Broadway hands can either call or 4-bet, and I decided to 4-bet there. I've got some short stacks behind me. I'm going to flatten the button with pocket threes. And here, I don't really know. You could call. Set mining is probably going to be maybe a bit worse when the preflop raise is short. But I don't think you want to be always calling that hand in theory if you're always playing it pre. I think what happens in theory is like that the pocket threes get called on the button, just shreds, and then if you do get squeezed, then you end up calling all of them. But that's just because you called shreds of them pre-flop. I think that that's how it works. But another spot can either 3-bet or call pre on table 2, and yeah, I don't know. Just can't even, seems like can't even see a flop really, but not much we can do. Jack 8 suited, we've got a limper. I'm gonna go for the ISO. And then we've got a flat call in the small blind. And I think this is that player who was opening to 5x because he's double stacked. We get the donk on the flop and definitely calling. I think this player is just a wild and crazy guy. And now the hand's just going to play itself because we turn trips. On table 2, I'm just checking back. I snap called him. I feel kind of bad snap calling the fun player who's pretty clearly running a huge bluff. Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have given it a few seconds. I mean, not to say that he can't have value there. He definitely can, but when I have trips, he's definitely showing up with a bluff quite often there. I think I would probably call any queen there. Queen X plus. And then the hand that happened on the right table at the same time, I wasn't really paying close attention to that, but it's possible I might have missed a raise there with top pair. I think it was just a block bet on the river. But I'm not sure. I don't think that would be a pure raise, even if it was supposed to raise a bit. Going to use a small size on the monotone flop, mostly checking this hand. Your trash isn't going to see that all that much on mono. And then on the turn, we have the 4 flush. I'm going to go for a bluff here. Perfectly fine to delay c-bet this hand in theory, and I think I'm going to go for, yeah, I'm not giving up. I'm going to go for it again. And river is fine as well. And I think, you know, obviously you can't bluff this hand all the time in theory, but you can definitely bluff it. And I think those spots do generally get a lot of credit. I mean, my opponent just had a flush and he made the correct call. But I think those are spots where it's kind of easy to miss bluffs because, you know, you have to turn trash into bluffs on a scary board. And I think that that will get a lot of credit. Calling or raising on table 2. I don't really see any reason to stab here. My hand's just kind of too weak. It's going to mostly just fold weaker hands and get calls from stronger hands. On the river, I will go for some value. Pocket kings, I'm going to raise it up. I'm going to go a little bit larger than my normal small 3-bet size because we're deep. And then we face a large 4-bet. I don't know how this, I don't remember how this plays exactly, but I think we can slow play or raise at this depth. I decided to raise. Sevens, I think I want to be 3-betting there if I'm using the small size. But it might be, 8s might be the bottom, I'm not sure. So facing this double stack player again, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy. I decided to check the flop, even though I don't really want to be checking this very much in theory. Now I face a half pot bet. He's acting really quickly. He's double stacked. I know there's a double stacked recreational in this pool, and just kind of quickly betting half pot. This call is going to be really bad versus irregular, really bad in theory. With a spade, I can bluff catch, but without a spade, it's quite bad on the flush close board. But versus recreational, I do still think we probably have a profitable call, especially. Actually, I stacked a double stacked fish in the previous hand, so maybe that wasn't the same fish. But it seemed like there was a good chance that that player was a recreational just based on his timings and his sizings in that hand. So on table 2, I'm going to overbet. And then we river the 5, so I'm definitely going to bet this hand, but I don't think it's strong enough to go for an overbet on the river. And so I'm just going to use a 2/3 river size, or 3/4. This one's going to be a call on table 1. So basically with that ace queen hand is it's a tough spot, because if it's a recreational, then I think I want to be calling. If it's a regular, then I definitely want to be folding. So in that case, I mean, it just depends on how fishy the player's line is. And in that case, I think I'm okay with calling there, but you could certainly just argue for a fold. The reason I'm saying it's a good call versus a recreational is just because it's a low board, it's paired, and there's just a lot of, if a player is just clicking buttons, there's a lot of trash hands that he can have on that board. On table 2, so we called the open raise, and then middle position, checked back on the low board. Button versus middle position or under the gun. In theory, you're going to be probing these low boards a ton. So I'm going to be mostly betting that hand. It's possible I would even pure bet that hand, I'm not sure. Going to check range multi-way out of position. And here, probably shouldn't be calling this, but I think I just am assuming this is a recreational now. So when you're not sure, if you're just facing an unknown, you have to kind of think probabilistically. How do I want to play against a regular? How do I want to play against a recreational? And then try to find a happy medium between those two and weight it based on, how fishy is the hand. If it's a very fishy spot, then you can play more leaning towards how you would just play against a recreational. If you don't have a lot of indicators that the players are recreational, then I think it's more likely that you're up against a regular, and you just probably want to play as if you're up against a regular. These are the things we have to deal with if we play anonymous fast fold games. It's quite annoying, actually. I think if you're the type of player who makes a lot of money by being really good at exploiting recreationals, which I think I am that type of player, playing in a completely anonymous fast fold game is going to dramatically cut down your win rate, because you just can't ID the recreationals fast enough to exploit them. So another downside of fast fold formats, at least in anonymous sites. That being said, when the pool is like this, I think this is a pretty good game to play in, because these games seem pretty wild right now. nearing the end here. I think I've got another 5 to 10 minutes. There's going to be a couple more interesting spots coming up. But yeah, mostly this session has felt like, with the exception of that one hand where we had the gift, the recreational blasting off into us when we had trips, it's just been kind of swimming upstream. Nines, I'm going to pure call. I think you might be able to 4-bet this, just shreds. And on the flop here, we faced a small c-bet. And I wasn't sure about this. I rolled very aggressive, and so I decided to call this. I think my plan was, without a backdoor, I was going to call this like a quarter of the time. And I think we need to pure call this if we have a spade, and then we just kind of mix if we don't. And just going to fold here. Don't think this is a good bluff catching spot. Probably pretty bad bluff catcher, actually. In theory, I think my fives bet a lot on the flop, but can check back as well. Okay, so table 2, this is a fun hand. We've got the short stacker opening under the gun, face this really small, tiny kind of 3-bet. And then I called 4 to 3x, which I think is a fine size, especially given the stacks. We get the tank call from the short stack. 9-5 suited. I don't know. I think I fold this, but. And then, so the cutoff folds, and my plan here is, we flop the king. I'm gonna just c-bet small and then shut down, but I'm not folding. This is just too fishy here. So calling here, and then that happened. 5-4 offsuit. Yeah. Brutal game. Not much you can do. But yeah, I'm not folding that river ever. Gonna ISO this one. I think you can either check back or ISO it. And just mixing on the flop. Table 2, I don't really remember this hand. Looks like just gonna get pushed off the flop. And so I checked back the flop, table 1. Obviously calling turn. And kind of a scary bet on the river, but turned top pair, got a nice flush blocker. Don't think I'm folding here. And his bluff is
perfectly acceptable. Probably mandatory with 4 high. Maybe not. He might want to prioritize flush blockers there more. I'm not sure if it's actually mandatory there, but if it wasn't flush close, then I would say it definitely is. So definitely discouraging kind of uphill battle of a session, but just gonna stay patient and keep pushing the aggression, keep calling down in spots. Important not to drift into just really passive play when you're kind of running just really cold like this. And looks like this is where the stream ends. So not as action-packed as my previous streams, but I think it's still really valuable to study these spots, sort of the uglier spots. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something. Please consider liking the video or subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate that. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Good luck at the tables.